At last, Sarah Huckabee Sanders makes a triumphant return at a time when the least amount of people wanted her to. Now, on Sunday, former White House press secretary Huckabee Sanders defended President Trump following the release of a book by the anonymous author. So now this anonymous author, same one that penned the New York Times op-ed, saying that, oh, don't worry, everything's under control. We're the adults in the room, and then laying out about a million ways that Donald Trump is disastrous, and then saying, don't worry, we don't need to do the 25th Amendment because even though he's stupid, he's at least stupid enough to hold a pen and sign tax cuts into law. Wonderful. So now this same anonymous author, who is definitely open to criticism, is being criticized by Sarah Huckabee Sanders as being totally cowardly. That I might actually agree with. And then, of course, later on, we'll find out who that person actually is. Maybe it's Kellyanne Conway. Who knows, right? Imagine discussion in the Conway household at this point. To be a fly on that wall. Now, Huckabee Sanders, like I said, went after this book as well as the anonymous author and basically refuted a really interesting talking point. She said that officials, she pushed back on the assertion that Trump officials had to slim down briefing materials to a single key point in order to make the information easier for the president to understand. And that's, of course, a very, very nice way of basically saying that the president is an idiot. Now, I remember the original reporting here, not exactly from the book itself, which is a different quote on this, but there was a different reporting that said that Trump was not able to read a half a page briefing without getting bored and distracted. Like, like you would see with a child when you try to sit them down with something that's not engaging, right? Not like a picture book. So what they did, like a child, like a baby, is they would figure out ways to try to get him engaged. For one, they tried, since he's a narcissist, peppering his name all throughout the briefings so that when he would come across it, he would continue reading because he thinks it's about him, right? And then, not only that, they would put in, like I said, about a half a page of text, along with killer maps and graphics, like a picture book, as I mentioned. Now, finally, going to the point of putting the briefings in tweet-length segments in order to work around his extremely short attention span. Hilarious. Or at least it would be if it weren't so disastrous for the country. So now, Sanders, during an appearance on Fox News on Sunday, she said, well, that's completely wrong. She said, quote, it doesn't read to me like someone that spent real time with the president. You can't spend the kind of time with him and have that takeaway. Really? We might want to ask his former ghostwriter, Tony Schwartz. Tony Schwartz spent a lot of time with Donald Trump. This is way before he got into politics, way before he became president. This is during the writing of his book, The Art of the Deal, which Donald Trump did not write any at all of. Because, you could go through and you could read and you could see that he didn't touch it because there's a lack of, it was a tremendous hotel throughout any of the book. Right? It doesn't sound like him at all. Because if he were to write a book, it would be very, very thin, probably, and filled with a lot of descriptors. It was the greatest chocolate cake ever. It was what was it? It was wet, right? The hurricane was the wettest from the standpoint of water. Oh, come on, dude. Oh, doesn't sound like him at all. It doesn't sound like somebody who's very smart either, or who is a very stable genius. But okay. Anyway, so Sarah Huckabee Sanders goes to his leadership style. And this is fun. So she says that Trump is, quote, very decisive. I think it's the opposite of how they lay it out. He takes information from a number of people, wrong, very quickly processes it, extremely wrong, makes a decision and moves forward. I mean, I've watched this process play out so many times. Sat in hundreds of meetings with the president, and the idea that he can only take in one or two bullets is absurd. You might want to rephrase that. Does watching that process involve seeing a hamster run through his cage? But like instead of a normal hamster, it's a fat, lazy hamster with a bad comb over, struggling to get that wheel. Come on, man. Come on, little hamster. You could do it, buddy. You could do it. Oh my god. Okay. No, this is a guy who, again, you've heard a lot of anonymous accounts from White House officials, White House staffers, and those accounts pointed to one thing: that Trump was super lazy. For example, he would take out of his day about 6 hours in the morning for executive time. Now, what was executive time? It's basically F off time for Donald Trump, where he could sit back, eat cheeseburgers, drink Diet Coke, and live tweet Fox and Friends. That's basically what he would do. Of course, he would call his friends and essentially leak to the press, and talk about how unfair everything is. Okay. Now, one more here, and this is great. Every single foreign trip, she said, we would actually laugh about the fact that he has boxes upon boxes, file boxes, where he reads for hours. The rest of us want to take a break. We want to sleep. The president works the entire time. So even if that was true, the fact that he's reading file boxes, which I'm not buying that he's reading the whole time. I do buy that he's awake, that he doesn't sleep. Why? Because Adderall is a hell of a drug. Okay. So, no, but do I think he's working? No. Those boxes are probably filled with KFC or something, or tweets. I don't know. Something, right? Boxes upon boxes of files. No. Mm-mm. Not buying it at all. Come on. Does anybody actually believe any of this? No, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is a liar. Look, let me give you an example of how unread president, because you can't sit there and read before every flight and come up with examples like this. This was back when Trump was meeting with German Prime Minister Angela Merkel. So during one of these conversations, Trump had asked Merkel about 11 times if the U.S. could start a trade deal with just Germany, bypass the EU. Now, the U.S. cannot negotiate a deal with just Germany. No, we have to deal with the European Union as a bloc. That's why they're the European Union. And that's one of the parts of being in the European Union. Now, she ended up having to explain to him about 11 times. I love these quotes. Quote, 10 times Trump asked German Chancellor Angela Merkel. I said Prime Minister. Sorry, Chancellor. My bad. If he need, and it doesn't exactly make my point that Trump's a stupid person when I make such a simple mistake, but okay, let's let it go. 10 times Trump asked German Chancellor Angela Merkel if he could negotiate a trade deal with Germany. Every time she replied, you can't do a trade deal with Germany, only the EU. That's 10 times. On the 11th time, Trump finally said, oh, we'll do a deal with Europe then. Oh, it only took you 11 times till you got it. Merkel reportedly told her cabinet members that Trump has a, quote, very basic misunderstandings of the fundamentals of of the EU and trade. Does that sound like somebody who stays up all night reading materials? Does he? No. That sounds like an idiot who doesn't even understand what he's supposed to be doing. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, for her part, is a shameless liar. And here's the kicker, right? You're probably wondering about the timing of her suddenly showing up and defending the president, right? Well, for one, okay, to be fair, you have the book, right? which I'm sure has throws a little bit of shade on Sarah Huckabee Sanders as well. But not only that, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the rumor is she's prepping a run for the governor's seat in Arkansas. So, a Trump endorsement, by the way, might help her get there in Arkansas. Sarah Sanders is your total skeevy politician and a complete unrepentant liar. And I think that actually makes her perfectly suited to success within the modern Republican Party. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.